Warning, if you have children in the car, hit the pause button.
I mark explicit content and not made for kids on every single episode, so I've done my part. I got a Falconer.
I'm frisky. I think I might need to get high for this one. I'm going to get high. We got this. We're good. We're feeling good. My dick's at full 1.5.
Oh, you got the extra? Dang.
Bigger than a gorilla dick. How's that?
Where are you measuring from, though? You measuring
Asshole.
from back of balls or front?
Center of asshole.
I think those results might be tainted.
Sights and sounds and edges found, you will now get down with the Underground. The show that goes to the depths of the Dynasty landscape. Dynasty Underground is back in the crib. Excited to be here. We're, of course, posted up on the Undroppables YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, like, and leave a comment there to show us some love. Find us on your favorite audio platforms. And, of course, follow us on social media at the Undroppables. With me, as usual, the Miyagi of the Undroppables, Mr. Jax Falcone. How are you doing this evening, brother?
Fantastic. I don't even know what to say. I'm so excited about the show. Let's make it happen. I can't wait to hear what Joe's got for us, though.
Absolutely. It's going to be another fun one, much like last week was. And in the corner office with the view, the aristocrat tonight, he is the power broker, Joe Kuvatakis. What up?
Oh, man, I'm so glad you said that and led me in like that. Here, I'm going to hold up my award here.
Pulls out the hardware.
States just that very thing.
On the table, are you?
I want you guys to pull your phones out and feast your eyes on what I just did. Bam. That's straight from the Underground League. Some power broker things.
Okay. So you were excited to make a trade live on the air. Is that what we're saying? Yeah.
I had two trades.
You went ahead and you secured the San Francisco backfield is what you did.
Sure did. Feel real good about it too. Anyway, so earlier this week, Nick Chubb signed with the Houston Texans, and I already had Joe Mixon. I was like, oh, well, that's a nice little built-in handcuff I got there. Then, I got some offers thrown my way today, and I decided to do the thing that I do, which is feel out the rest of the league and see if I can do a little twofer. That's one of my favorite moves, and now I have Christian McCaffrey and Isaac Guerendo as well.
Yep.
No, that team's feeling pretty dominant, guys.
Of course, what happened here is Mr. Kuvatakis is a very familiar trade for me, which is he's got two trades that only make sense if they both happen. So he waited.
That's right.
Until he had both of them in the inbox. Wouldn't have done them in any other way except with it in the inbox. If it was anything he was sending out, I'm sure it was such an advantageous win for him, it didn't even make sense. But he said, I'll do it if, boom, and that's where it comes in. And he makes two trades. The first one I like because you're selling on Ray Davis. Ray Davis is getting some hype right now. Ray Davis is what? He is a backup running back, a handcuff running back. He trades Ray Davis for a handcuff running back, Isaac Guerendo. But because there's a little bit of hotness on Ray Davis right now, you also get Treylon Burks as a parting gift, which is a
that was almost that was. Yeah, it was almost a joke. It was like thrown in there. I was like, give me a little something more. I was trying to get a pick, and then our boy K Troll throws in Isaac Guerendo. I was like, you know what, son of a bitch, I'm in.
Treylon Burks. Perfect. So you get Guerendo and Treylon Burks. The next one is a little interesting as you trade Tyrone Tracy and Damian Martinez plus your 27 first to get back someone else's 27 second and Christian McCaffrey.
Yes.
So, of course, the two trades together net you Christian McCaffrey and Isaac Guerendo, which together start to make a lot more sense. Even the first which is a little rough to get going, but it's a late first, and hopefully I guess you're hoping that the 27 second is somewhat early. You lose the liquidity and the fluidity of having the 27 first, but you're using it here to bring home what you think is a strong high-end RB1 and his handcuff to try and secure a winning team to winning opportunity. Not crazy. Love it.
Yep.
Feeling pretty good. And, I hate trading away future firsts. I really do. You have to be getting a premium asset, which McCaffrey is. We don't know how much time is left on the clock there, but you got to be getting a premium asset for that. I wouldn't have done it without the Garendo handcuff to cover my ass. And the fact that it was a 27 first actually also helps, just because I got 2 years basically to figure it out. If I got this year and next year, see if I got to start, recouping some draft capital for that draft, and just ride the wave in the meantime.
Yeah, and looking at your team here, Joe, I like the move also because the top running back on your team, Joe Mixon, and now Christian McCaffrey might not be, well, he definitely is probably a little bit of a longer-term dynasty play than Joe Mixon. Maybe not that much, but at the same time, for production now, which you kind of needed on this team, I think you kind of knocked it out of the park. And I don't like getting that second back makes me feel so much better about sending away that first.
Totally. That could be a mandatory part of the trade.
That could be a difference of 4 picks, right? And so I think that makes you feel okay, because those seconds can become pretty liquid too, depending on the draft and the needs that are out there and whatnot. So I think those seconds are very useful in further trades, maybe in season or at draft season. So nothing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and Keegan was adamant about the 27 first. He's kind of into collecting 27 firsts, and I knew that about him by being in now 2 leagues with him. So shout out Keegan. Got him his first, got me McCaffrey. So now it's Josh Allen, Joe Mixon, Christian McCaffrey, Terry McLaurin, AJ Brown, T. Higgins, Brenton Strange, Zay Flowers, Jaden Reed, Caleb Johnson, and Jordan Love make up that starting lineup. I'd say I'm one of the provisional favorites to win year 1 of the Underground League. Got some work to do, but it's strong.
Except I'm in that league, Joe. So not quite, brother. Not quite. So I don't even remember what my team looks like in that league. If I'm being honest, it could be a trash bag, but I don't think it is. I think I was pretty happy with it. But
the crazy thing about year one, though, the crazy thing about year one rosters is they're all redraft rosters. You know what I mean? For lack of a better term. In other words, nobody has like these weird, irregular rosters. I mean, maybe a little bit sometimes, but generally speaking, everybody, like, I could name my starters and I'd be like, they're fine too. You know what I mean? Like, we're similar. That's the thing is like, that's why you kind of bank on the assets if you can and hold on to them. Not to belittle your point of making the trade, but just in general, because it's like, of course you just obviously strengthen your team, putting Christian McCaffrey and his handcuff on your team. My point though, is that other things could go wrong with that team that could, take it out, and all of a sudden you're fucked and you can't do anything about it, or whatever the case, and you're having a hard time putting together a contender. Well, if you do that with the capital, then you're in better shape than if you do that without having future capital. Is basically the general point of it all. But yeah, I'm not poo-pooing your trade. It's just an interesting dynasty thought that I thought of.
Yeah. No, it's not a typical move that I make, but I don't know. Yeah. I kind of looking at the landscape of that league. I'm like, this is kind of up for grabs right now. Might as well put myself in position to go take it. And I've still got my first round pick next year. So it gives me like a little bit of a larger window. Anyways, absolutely. That's not what we're talking about tonight, guys. Sorry to derail the show from the start. I'm one for theatrics, and I just love just hitting the accept button twice in a row and just dropping those bombs on the league.
There we go.
That is absolutely fun. Absolutely fun. Thank you for that, Joe. No, it's always nice to get a good glimpse in as we kick off the show. But what we're talking about tonight, guys, is a continuation of our team series that we started last week. And this week, the grouping, as provided by one Jax Falcone, is teams who are anchored by a rushing quarterback. Jax, the term that you used in the show sheet was elite offenses limited by a rushing QB, and I see where you were coming from, but I didn't necessarily want to speak ill of them by saying that they limit their offenses. No, right. I think there are some pockets, of course, and I was just being a little bit joking there, where I decided to put the positive spin. Strength-based wording, let's call it, Jax. It is 2025 now, right? So we don't want these quarterbacks to be hurt by that.
Well,
I
they're
think
not
it's
the
a
ones
good
that,
group of teams.
by the way, they're not the ones that get hurt. It's the rest of the weapons that get hurt by their awesomeness. So these
Yeah,
quarterbacks,
exactly.
they get more while Joe mentioned it last week. They get more
He
while the
did, yeah.
weapons get less. They just take stuff off the table, rushing yards, rushing first downs, rushing touchdowns, as well as pass attempts. All come off the board because they scramble. Not
Yeah.
good.
Not to mention running back targets, all sorts of things like that. Red zone targets,
all of
goal
them.
line targets for some of the guys we're going to talk about. This is
Bingo.
going to be a one chock full.
I just did a little bit of cursory overall research on this, right? So, of the 5 teams that we're talking about this evening, they make up 5 of the top 8 quarterbacks in in fantasy points per game in 2024. The other interesting thing is 4 of them make up are in the top 8 in overall offensive fantasy points scored for their teams per game as well. So I found there's some stuff that's surprising, and we'll get into it. But yeah, that's kind of what we're getting at, is like they kind of lift all boats overall, but they are taking the biggest piece of the pie, and that's sort of what we're talking about tonight.
That's right.
Yeah,
They're so
for sure.
these are not shitty. Justin Fields ain't in this. These are the elite.
Yeah,
Of the elite.
yeah.
No, it's true though, right? Like even Drake May, like last year, was a rushing quarterback, but he wasn't the tide that lifted all boats into greatness. So these are actually the
Correct.
great teams that have a rushing quarterback. So you got to be a little bit more careful with the weapons, especially I would say, and we're going to get there. Some of the tertiary weapons are the ones that really suffer. They can have some premier guys, but after that, there's not much more.
100%. Yeah. Going to talk about lots of that stuff on this one, guys. And the teams that we're going to talk about tonight are going to be the Denver Broncos, Washington Commanders, Baltimore Ravens, Philadelphia Eagles, and we are going to start with the Buffalo Bills, guys, because they've been a run-heavy team, and obviously we know that with Josh Allen. I was looking at some of the numbers, and they were top 10 in run rate overall on first down when trailing, inside the 10, inside the 20. So this team likes to run the ball, and obviously Josh Allen was a big piece of that. A fun offense to watch, albeit a hard one to pin down in certain places from a fantasy perspective. But we're going to start with one Josh Allen, guys. We talked about Jayden Daniels recently as far as being kind of that consensus quarterback one in startups. I want to ask you guys, like, that doesn't mean it's crazy to be having Josh Allen in that spot still. Would you say, like, Jax, would you say there's situations where you would risk it for the biscuit with Josh Allen over Jayden Daniels in, say, a startup if you're building a team around him? Or is it still Jayden Daniels or bust, do you think?
I think it's Jayden Daniels, but it's close enough where you could absolutely make the case. Like I always say this, if we're running a team together and you were like, dude, I want Josh Allen, I want to build this team, I'd be like, all right, okay. I mean, it's not like ridiculous. So, you can win that argument for yourself and be okay. You'll have a pretty dope, quarterback one. He's 29 years old. Rushing quarterbacks don't usually survive too long. That's the other thing. The shelf life with these rushing quarterbacks tend to be shorter. We haven't really had this type of rushing quarterbacks for very long, though, in the league. This is somewhat of a new thing where we have these dual threat guys. I mean, also, the further back you go in history, they used to actually kill the quarterbacks. So using some of the historical data could be a little bit tainted in terms of us thinking about how long these guys can actually last. Now you can't really hit them. You can't really hit anybody. I mean, with all fairness here, I mean, I'm not calling the league soft, but the hitting has gone down. So, I mean, ultimately at the end of the day, these guys are a bit more protected, but still 29 years old, big bodied. I don't know how long that lasts. So I think I just go Jayden, but that's really the only downside with Josh Allen because he's such an absolute stud.
Yeah, I would say that he's probably a better bet to finish as a top 2 or 3 quarterback than Jayden Daniels is in any particular season. The only thing that puts Jayden ahead of him in Dynasty is just the age and the things that you just sort of enumerated. But like in terms of body of work, and if you're just looking at like a 2-year window, dude's still an alien monster. Mike Clay's got him projected to be the QB3 in points per game with 3,900 plus yards, 27 passing touchdowns, 11 rushing touchdowns, and 580 yards rushing. So you're going to get just monster weeks out of him and a super high floor in the process.
Mm-hmm. So I think what's more interesting in this Bills offense, because we know what we're getting with Josh Allen, right? QB1, QB3, you're splitting hairs. It's going to be an elite option that you set and forget. These other guys is what's very interesting. So do we want to start running backs, or do we want to start wide receivers here, fellas? What do you think?
I'd say let's start running backs.
Yeah, I was going to say, you just had a Ray Davis trade, so why don't we use that as our entry into the running backs here? Obviously, James Cook is above Ray Davis on the depth chart, but James Cook's not a very happy camper right now in Buffalo, wanting that new contract. We did talk a little bit of that Ray Davis buzz that's bubbling up. So, Joe, what do you make of this situation as far as these running backs and how to attach to something in the running back room? Because we know James Cook had that big season last year, but we don't know if that's necessarily set to sustain.
Yeah, I mean, holdouts aren't really a thing anymore under the, NFLPA's most recent agreement. So I don't think he's holding out. He showed up to the mandatory workouts, not the voluntary stuff, but he showed up to the mandatory stuff. So, I don't think he's going to sit there and rack up fines. He can ask for $15 million. He's probably not going to get it. They may or may not work out a long-term deal. It kind of, the way the league is right now, it's kind of like he's probably likely to get a 2-year extension, in my opinion. They've got no reason to get rid of him, but Ray Davis is a super capable backup. I actually really like his game. And so if Cook were to miss time, either, because of contract issues or not being injured, or, if he leaves, like Ray Davis gets super, super interesting, right? But I think, in the games we saw where he started last year, he was putting up RB2 and RB1 numbers in those couple of games. So very capable running back behind James Cook, but they've got no reason to really go away from James Cook either. So like the split they had last year worked perfectly fine. I'd kind of expect to see more of the same with some Ty Johnson sprinkled in as well, because he proved himself to be like a really good pass catcher and downfield weapon out of that position, which is kind of what they need due to their lack of playmakers, for lack of a better term, at the wide receiver position.
Mm-hmm. I think Ty Johnson's entering that like pesky Samaje Perine territory where he's just going to be in there taking a few touches that just makes it kind of frustrating for some of those other guys. Jax, where are you sitting on these guys?
Well, I think it's interesting that they're both converging. You look at James Cook, somewhere around, pick 60 in a startup, right in that ballpark. The 5-6 turn ish. So, that's obviously fine value for a running back that can put up the points he can. But again, I'm generally a fade at running back in that zone in a startup, but not bad value. Ray Davis moving up from, 170 ish up in closer to the top 150, and Kuvatakis selling on that hotness. I like Ray Davis a lot too. I think, I think you're right. I think James Cook comes back this year and doesn't really affect him for this year. And, I don't know. I think they get something done, but these things tend to just like, what they're just going to end it all and go Ray Davis. I don't see that.
Yeah.
I think this is not what that is. Yeah. This is one of those things that's just going to create an opportunity pocket if you like or don't like either one of these players to sell or buy them, because there's an irregularity in value because of nervousness from nothing happening whatsoever. The interesting thing I find is there any value at all? Well, there's got to be. But where is the value at the wide receiver position? Because I see 4 guys that I like. Well, no, I don't. I see 4 guys, but somebody's got to be good. I see 4 guys.
And it was interesting. It was interesting, Jax, because on the True North pod, we broke down some of these kind of ambiguous wide receiver rooms, and the Buffalo Bills surprisingly gave the 4th most targets to the wide receiver position, and I believe had the 4th most yardage to the wide receiver, receiving yards to the wide receiver position too. Incredible. Which is pretty surprising to me. It's like the wide receiver by committee approach from these guys, right? And it's nobody's going to get a 25% target share. If anybody, I think it's going to be Khalil Shakir, because he's the slot guy soaking up those targets. I think he got over 100 last year, and so I think that'll probably continue. But those are going to be low upside targets from Khalil Shakir as that low A dot slot guy. So I don't expect a ton for him. He's not even a huge target for me. I'm taking the cheap options because I think their profiles present more upside, and you don't have to pay very much. So obviously, I like some Josh Palmer. He is Canadian, but he is a big-bodied guy who can go up and he can get it a little bit, and he can be kind of that X outside receiver that Khalil Shakir can't be. So I think he's probably the best suited in that X position for these guys, with Elijah Moore and Keon Coleman as the other options. Keon Coleman, we talked about it when he was being drafted, that he isn't that great when he's playing on the outside. He's better in the slot, and he showed not very much in his rookie season. So I'm not super bullish on very many of these guys. I like Elijah Moore. I like Josh Palmer. So I'm just taking the cheap options because I don't really necessarily want to invest in these other guys because it's just going to be, not Shakir is going to be a zero, but I think where Shakir's going, there's probably some guys ahead of him or around him that I like better. Joe?
Yeah, well, they realized last year that, they didn't have the answer, and so they traded for Amari Cooper midseason. He didn't really end up being the answer. He gave them a little something. They were hoping Keon could play X, and, he's, I think, still ill-suited for that role. And so I think they're really banking on a jump from him. And if they don't get it, I think that's what the Palmer signing was all about, right? It's just like he's the contingency plan to occupy that space in the wide receiver room if Keon Coleman doesn't make that jump, and we kind of just get more of the same from him that we got in his rookie year. I think Shakir is definitely the favorite for the target leader on the team, and definitely the favorite for probably the most yardage out of this room. But is he going to be a difference maker in Dynasty? I tend not to think so. He's like a very nice, comfortable, flex play any given week. But there's this is the 100 Michael Mayer sized ducks thing all over again,
Yes.
but and a couple tiers above. But that's what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. Keon Coleman, we didn't like the profile. Khalil Shakir, we kind of do now, especially because he's a slot target guy. Okay, so I think he's kind of solved. I think Keon Coleman's kind of solved too. Like, I don't think he's going to be a volume guy. I think the question for me is, because I think you're right. I think Shakir is that number one guy. Coleman's a little bit middling. Outside, they're not going to feature him in the slot role. Who's going to be the next guy? Like, who is it Josh Palmer or Elijah Moore, or is it nobody, right? Do they sort of just cannibalize each other and all just kind of become nothing? Or is there a player like Palmer or Elijah Moore who both have interesting profiles, right? These aren't nobodies, especially Elijah Moore. I hate to put him ahead of your guy Palmer, but like we do remember the
No, you're
candle
right.
very firmly lit for Elijah Moore. So I love getting Elijah Moore at cost in any sort of way I can because look, it's basically free. They're up in the 270s, like their ADP. It's like it's way down there. I mean, you're basically sliding these guys onto your roster for nothing. And I'm guessing actually in a lot of leagues, Elijah Moore is on the waiver wire in a lot of dynasty leagues. So for me, getting Elijah Moore and just seeing what happens. If nothing happens, it's an easy drop too. It's not like, oh, I've got to hold on to make sure. Either it starts in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks, or it doesn't, and you're probably good. But he could come out there and play alongside Shakir with Coleman occupying that outside space. And two of these players, whether it be Palmer and Shakir or Moore and Shakir, are getting peppered with targets. Possible.
Yeah, I'm with Trav. I think my cheap answer is probably Palmer, just because I know he's like just as middle of the road as receivers get, and unfortunately in this room, that's pretty good.
That is pretty good.
You'll
You're
take
right.
that,
and
and
that's a great point. Yeah.
And the other guys are not, like Elijah Moore is not going to play predominantly on the outside either, right? Khalil Shakir definitely isn't. We think that Keon Coleman can't. And so what's gonna happen in one wide receiver sets? It's gonna be Josh Palmer. Not saying that for sure, and I'm not saying Khalil Shakir can't play in one wide sets. I actually don't have the data on that, but I will look that up after this now. I think Josh Palmer is going to be the second guy to Khalil Shakir, unless they're really trying to slam that square Keon Coleman peg into the triangular hole. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they're just doing their team a disservice in the window that they're in with Josh Allen to be trying to put a receiver who's not succeeding in there. But if he does succeed, then more power to him too, right? Joe, what's the smirk about?
I'm just thinking about something about pegging Keon
Oh,
Coleman.
you're a pervert. You are a pervert, man. Get your mind out of the
He's gonna
gutter.
peg him. Hey, he's gonna peg him with a 1.5-inch triangle. Anyway,
1.5.
it's a big
Wow.
triangle.
That is,
What
yeah.
about, speaking of big triangles, let me ask you boys, do we think there's any sort of candle still left lit for Dalton Kincaid as an elite tight end, or is
Oh,
he just, a guy, a nice lunch pail guy?
I think if our candle's still lit for Kyle Pitts, our candle should still be lit for Dalton Kincaid.
So no. so it's
Isn't it such a
I
shitty
mean,
situation? Like, he's attached to one of the best quarterbacks in the league on a team that is starving for an alpha target. He can play a lot out of the slot, so he doesn't necessarily have to just be the inline tight end, which I know for a tight end we like a guy to play inline and in the slot, but for a team that is so starved for alpha targets, like, why can't he just be the predominant slot who is eating volume out there, and it doesn't matter, right? It's not necessarily a team that needs him to be that inline tight end option with Dawson Knox there. So it's just puzzling for me because I've been a Dalton Kincaid truther big time, and it hasn't panned out. And he's gotten lots of the volume. He just has not been able to convert on it. And so I'm not ready to blow the candle out yet whatsoever, but I'm happy to hear a case for it.
It's the same problem with Kyle Pitts, right? That's what we're dealing with, which is like they're playing a tight end as a wide receiver, but it's almost worse than Pitts because they've got a bunch of other dudes that occupy the same area of the field that are better at this. So, it's not deceptive to the defense, and it's not creating mismatches for him. I think that's really what it comes down to with Kincaid. So him and Pitts sort of suffer from the same symptoms of not being great blockers and not really being able to be used in that way and create mismatches. That's it's as simple as that, unfortunately, to me, plus the target competition in the same area of the field by way of these, undersized or oversized slots on the team. So maybe in a different team environment where there was that dominant X and a deep speed guy, then not so much of the talent concentrated on this archetype. It could be better for Kincaid, but once you start making excuses for guys like we're making for Kincaid, it's pretty much over already. Like, there's time for a tight end. There's always more time, and he's young enough where he can, recover from this. But excuses are pretty. They don't typically lead to positive outcomes.
Yeah, you know what's crazy,
And
Joe, is I was looking at this, and I was like, what was his deal last year? And then I looked and guess what his target rate was last year. I mean, you'll never guess what his target rate was. Any guesses?
Like targets per route run?
Yes.
Or yeah.
Yes.
Oof. I'm gonna say like under 15% for sure.
Dude, it's crazy. It was 29%.
Oh my god.
That's why I saw that. I was like,
this is terrible. This is terrible. Holy
shocking.
cow.
And I was like, wait a minute. How is that
19%
possible?
of the air yards, Joe. 19% of the team's air yards.
Yep.
Yeah,
Not
insane.
Good. So
that's shocking.
What happened though is this. It was shocking. And I looked, I'm like, well, he must have missed a bunch of games. He missed 3 with the knee injury late, and I guess didn't play in the final week against New England. So whatever, because they didn't play anybody. But he played a lot, got targeted a lot, and I was like, wait, what was his problem then? He was 6 yards per target, which was 35th in the NFL in terms of efficiency at the tight end position. He was not very good. He was actually getting targets, but wasn't doing much with them in an offense that is featuring Josh Allen. So I wonder if there's something coming, back. Look, can he get efficiency back? In his first year, he wasn't that good. He was 7.4 yards per target, 19th in the NFL, but only a 20% target rate. So I wonder exactly what's got to give. Maybe the target rate comes down, right? Maybe they were leaning on him in moments that they didn't want to lean on him for possession catches, and he's just not good enough. That's kind of what I think it is, because the 29%, you're right, I was floored by it. So I think that comes down, and I think that goes to a player like Palmer, honestly, who's going to be a more reliable target out there than is, the receivers they had out there last year.
And
Well, I mean, just when you got, I mean, what that necessarily means is like the EPA per target is horrific, right?
Horrific.
yes,
I think the last image we all have of Kincaid is him not catching that pass that would have more or less secured the
bad.
game against the Chiefs as well. So
So bad.
he's got that stink on him all offseason. I'm sure he hasn't endeared himself to many Bills fans, whether or not that's his fault on a tough
Dalton
catch, whatever.
Kincaid.
Yeah, but so when your EPA is that bad, your team is going to give it to you less, and that might increase his efficiency, but it's not going to make him. Yeah, wow. I was already out on him like this. I have 0 shares. That's damning. That's damning stuff.
Yep,
Mhm.
that's what
Yeah.
that's what I thought too. I did not know that was the case. I was just like, I looked at this, I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Totally. And you mentioned the 6.3 yards per target, Jax. That's on an 8.6 average depth of the target, which is fairly high for a tight end.
Right.
So it's almost like he's going backwards
Yes.
when he's catching, and like he underperformed his expected fantasy points per game by over 2 fantasy points per game. So versus expectation, he should have been getting 2 more points per game. He has a tight end 30 on the season. And I don't give a shit when you're getting that kind of volume, even on 13 games. You got to be better than the tight end 30. So I'm actually not as hurt by this one, Jax, because you have been beating your disdain for Dalton Kincaid into me for what feels like years now. So I've mentally been prepared for this downfall. And so this doesn't crush me as much as some others that we've talked about over the years, but it still hurts a little bit because he was supposed to be good, man.
Kind of reiterates what a bad choice it is to take tight ends in the first round of your rookie drafts or in the first round of the NFL draft, right? I mean, you got a few hits, obviously Bowers, and yeah, that's special, but we all knew how special he was going in, and Kincaid kind of was foisted on us during the process, like, oh, this guy's a first round pick, and that's kind of why I've faded both of the first round tight ends in this year's class as well. I was just like, I'm just content to take these other dudes that went in the second and third round and not pay that sort of premium because there's just such a high failure rate on these dudes that have super high expectations. And even I'll forever be burned by Kyle Pitts. Like for every Bowers I miss out on, I also miss out on Kincaid. So hopefully that it balances out.
but even the successes aren't that big a hit. I don't know go look at whoever the tight end 10 or 11 were. And you're not gonna be like, oh yeah, they helped me win something. No, they did not. So all the tight end ones, most of them didn't even help you do shit anyway. It's only a couple of them. And this year it was what? McBride, Kittle, and Bowers. Those are the guys that helped you win anything, if anything, right?
Yep.
Absolutely. Exactly. And just to drive your point, well, tight end 12 this year, Hunter Henry. Tight end 13, Mike Gesicki. Tight end 14, Cade Otton. So
need I say more?
Zach Ertz is in the top 10 too, by the way.
He's tight end 7. Tight end 7. Whole lot of lunch pail there. Yeah.
Yep.
Very good, boys. So we're gonna move along and we're gonna talk about my birds, fellas, the Philadelphia Eagles. And this is a very interesting offense for fantasy purposes. And I can absolutely strip my fandom out of this because I am not a huge investor in the Eagles offense as it currently sits. Certain places, yes, but not one that I think, yeah, that team's going to put up a shitload of points. So I want all pieces. This is a really run-heavy offense, of course, with Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. We know that there are a lot of red zone touchdowns soaked up by those two guys, particularly Hurts. So what do you think, guys? Like, this is an offense that to me is a little bit different than some of the ones that we're going to talk about, right? Because, yeah, sure, we do like some of the passing game options, but I think there is maybe a floor that could drop out for some of those guys that I'm seeing. And so let's start with these wide receivers here because we kind of know what the running back is, we know what the quarterback is, and we can polish it off with them. But AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith is the wide receiver 2, kind of the Robin to AJ Brown's Batman. AJ Brown, we've talked about him aging a little bit over the last few episodes and kind of a little bit of what we're doing with him from a dynasty lens. Jax, I always love your take on these aging veterans and kind of their perspective on where they can be used and where they can't. So is AJ Brown like a get out at all costs, or is it only if you're like absolutely a contender? Or what about like those middle teams who maybe think they have a shot? Should they still be trying to get out of AJ Brown and stack assets, or like where would you be sitting on him?
Like, imagine if AJ Brown would have played his entire career with Patrick Mahomes. Like,
Insane.
I know.
do you know what I'm saying? Like, he played first, with Tennessee where he didn't get targets. Then he comes to Philadelphia, he doesn't get targets. I mean, I know he
He'd
gets
still be the dynasty top 3 wide receiver.
He's
today.
so badass. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. Like, he's so fucking badass. So AJ Brown's great. Guess how many players, not just receivers, guess how many players received more than 100 targets on this team last year?
I'm going to say 2.
I'm going to say 1-0. Yes. Yeah.
0.
He was
97
fifth
targets
under.
for AJ
Yeah.
Brown, 89 for Devontae Smith. Like,
That's incredible.
that's incredible. That's incredible. That's just not enough. It's just not enough. And obviously we expect that number to go up. They both missed games. I get it. They're going to see more than that. I'm not suggesting that they're going to see 97 and 89 in 2025 when you listen to this. I'm saying that's not enough. And adding to that 120 and 125, still not really enough.
Maybe, Jax. Maybe. Like, you're being generous.
Right. And like, I get it. AJ Brown's so badass that he can score 15 touchdowns on those 120 targets. He can run over people. He can take things to the house. Like, he is legit, no doubt. But he's also getting a little older. There is the downside of if he hurts himself, obviously I don't know, man. It's a scary passing offense. And before we were going to start talking about all of these teams, I was going to say, I don't think there's a wide receiver 3 in this whole group that I like. And clearly there's not one here either. It's hard to find who you'd value as the third wide receiver or even third pass catcher in this offense. It's very, very brutal. 418 total targets all season in Philadelphia last year.
Well, I just want to go back to the Bills for just a second.
Yeah.
Because
Holy, Joe.
No. It's going to help illustrate this point. It's going to help illustrate this point because of the teams we're talking about today, right? So the Bills, Josh Allen was number 2 in PPR points per game, right, at 22.8. His number 1 wide receiver from a fantasy point standpoint was Khalil Shakir, who averaged 12.2 points per game. That's good for wide receiver 37. And then Amari Cooper was number 2 at 8.8 fantasy points per game. That was good for wide receiver 62.
Is that
Hurts
just his Bills tenure though? Even that might
no. That was literally just last season. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
I don't know.
Most of his production was with the Browns, I would guess. But
yeah. You know what? You're probably right.
Further illustrating, fella. Further illustrating.
Yeah. You're probably right. And this is kind of just the point we're making. It's just how much these guys take away. Now, Hurts is the one example by way of sheer efficiency where he's the only one of these dudes that has a legit wide receiver 1 in fantasy points per game, and AJ Brown, who was at 16.7. That was good for number 12. And then Devonta Smith, who was at 15.3 points per game, which was good for wide receiver 17, while simultaneously having the number 1 running back and the number 11 tight end in points per game. So they produced a RB1, a tight end 1, a wide receiver 1, a wide receiver 2, and a QB1. That's rare. This is the exception that almost proves the rule. Right. And what needs to happen for this to take place? Exactly what Jack just said. Nobody else is worth a damn. Dallas Goedert's barely worth playing,
useless.
right?
Useless. But he's one of the most talented tight ends in the NFL. I maintain.
This is the rare occasion where you've got the.
I didn't see that comment coming. By the way, did not.
This is one of those rare situations where you've got this consolidated target share on, and the reason is this, because Hurts, although he runs, where he's scoring these points is via touchdowns and the tush push, right? That's where he's actually making his big impact. It's not so much sucking out all the oxygen and all the yardage out of the offense, scrambling. He can, and he does tactically, but he doesn't do it as much as the other guys we're talking about today. And so that's why we're able to see it. This is just a pie question once again. But this is the only example today that we're going to talk about where you've got that many impact players, and what it leads to is nobody else is worth anything on this offense.
Zero.
I would say the Ravens are kind of similar, just with Andrews as the Devontae Smith
Yep.
to Zay Flowers, but we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes.
We'll get there.
Sure.
Yeah, it's like I think of them, and I watch the Eagles every Sunday. I watch all of the shit. I feel the agony. I feel the joy. And I think of their passing game as kind of like an opportunistic efficiency offense. You talked about that efficiency, Joe, and it's there, and it has to be there for these guys to succeed because they just don't want to throw the ball that much. If they could run the ball 50, 60 times a game, they absolutely would. Look at Sirianni's tenure. They've been last in pass attempts twice in his 4 years in Philadelphia. So I think all of that's going to continue. To your point also, Joe, Jalen Hurts has 10 plus rushing touchdowns in each of the last 4 seasons. And one of the questions I was thinking of coming in to you guys was like, how volatile is Jalen Hurts? Because touchdowns just generally aren't that sticky. And so say if like the wheels fell off of the tush push or something, is he fucked? He would be fucked, but just I don't think the wheels are going to fall off of that because this is part of the engine that runs that team. And so if they can't do that anymore, I think the entire organization probably gets blown up and they start from scratch because
they
this entire
failed to
team's built
convert
around that.
They failed to convert utilizing the tush push once last year. They actually missed 8 times, I think it was, but 7 of those 8 were on third, and they just went for it on fourth and got it anyway, and did the exact same play. So really, they only missed once all year. So like this tush push ain't going anywhere, and it works every time, and it's going to continue to work, and that's that. And either other teams are going to figure out how to do it, or they're going to have an advantage. But it does, especially around the goal line, steal some opportunities from everybody else. Saquon Barkley saw 345 rush attempts and another 43 targets. Like he was almost at 400 opportunities in this offense. That feels like too much. Anybody with me on this one?
Yeah, totally.
Well, what's interesting about that is Saquon, and gosh, I wish I had the number in front of me, but he got stopped at the 1 yard line like 8 or 9 times last year. It was a big number, and Hurts scored touchdowns on like the next play, like on
all of them.
Most, most if not all of those, right? So there's actually more touchdown upside for Barkley. Assuming he doesn't have those tough breaks, near the goal line. But to your point, we're also worried about that sort of workload, especially when you factor in the playoffs. I mean, were you just quoting a regular season statistic, or was that including the playoffs?
No.
Because when you throw in the playoffs, it was well north of 400, if I'm not mistaken. That's scary levels of volume, and you don't bet against Hall of Fame level freaks like Saquon Barkley. Because in the right opportunity, they're going to shut everybody up like he just did. But I can't say I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. You have to be thinking what your outs are, basically. Like, it's not saying that you must sell, because I think right now we're in kind of this weird place with him where the next couple years of production could be worth more to you than what that return is that you're getting. Because if somebody's
1,000%.
buying him right now, they're buying him with, his age is on the table, and it's basically at the core of the reason why he's being sold at that very point. And so that person's going to want a little bit of a discount on the production that Saquon is having right now. So you really have to weigh that option, right? Is the production that he's giving you with the other players on your roster more worth taking that hit? Like, is he someone that you maybe just want to ride till the wheels fall off because your team's a little bit aging, or are you on maybe a young team that can compete, and that production for you is going to be really nice because the young receivers that you have are ready to break out? You know what I mean? So not a must sell for me.
No, I think the answer is very simple, actually. If you're a competing team, he's a competing weapon. And if you have him, there's no reason to sell him at all, because especially at the running back position, what else are you going to get? Bucky Irving, Travion Henderson, Omarion Hampton? Like, honestly, what are you going to do with all those guys? They're not as good as him for the next 2 years. And who knows what they are in the next 3-4 years. So you still don't have any certainty. Take the bankable production and move on. The only reason that you're selling Saquon Barkley is if you're in a complete rebuild. Well, then I guess, of course, you want to try and rip him into some other, assets and just move on. But you should be selling high, because he's kind of win the league again, potentially, if he stays healthy.
What do you guys think about Will Shipley? Because in light of what Jax was saying and just the huge carry count and touch count that we saw from Saquon, I've kind of been buying him everywhere this offseason. Just from this is not
You sold him to
casting
me.
doubt on Saquon, huh?
You sold him to me.
Oh,
I bought him from you.
That shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So I'll sell them too if people know to buy them.
Powerbroker, baby.
Everything's for sale, baby. Everything's for sale.
Yes,
but
yeah.
I've been like, I just drafted him in the 19th round of a startup that I'm in, where I was just looking for running back depth. I have him in a handful of leagues, and I've acquired him in a handful of leagues just because, just historically speaking, dudes that get the kind of touch volume Saquon gets don't stay healthy for long. So we had a historically healthy running back year last year. I don't wish ill on anybody, especially not guys I love like Saquon, but it's just the process, right? Just go get Will Shipley for cheap. He's, people think he's dust or, not going to get a ton of opportunity. I guess some people are wise to the fact that he's only competing against AJ Dillon, but he seems like a great buy even at cost, at value right now.
Yeah, I don't hate that at all, for sure. I think he is the one who presents like any of the upside of the backups. I don't know if he's obviously going to get the full pie that Saquon Barkley did, and I think AJ Dillon probably would have something to say about that workload. But I think Shipley is the higher upside option for sure, and don't hate the dart throw either. Another lunch pail member, by the way. Would love to see that at the running back position. Him and Scatterbo could start a club. Okay, we're going to talk about the aforementioned Baltimore Ravens guys because I'm kind of like, we've kind of talked about some of these quarterbacks, and we talked about
we're not going to talk about tight end on the Eagles.
No.
I do have one thing to say. It's just like
it needed already, Joe.
Well, no, I'm just going to say one thing is that Dallas Goedert is a start when AJ Brown or Devonta Smith are out. I don't think there's a wide receiver on that team that steps in and fills the void that they do, and Goddard's talented enough to do it. And Kyle Katera, actually, when Goddard missed games, did a pretty good Goddard impression. So I think target number 3 on that team is, one of those 2 tight ends. But you're probably not really feeling great about starting them unless one of those top 2 receivers are out.
I will say this, though, to your point, Goddard is an absolute buy right now because I don't understand it. Like Trav, I agree with you. He's a talented tight end. I didn't see this slander coming from anywhere. This one hit me like a ton of bricks from left field. Joking. If you know, you know. But seriously, with Goddard, for real though, I am being honest about the slander not making any sense. Not seeing it coming. That's a joke. But yeah, he's so cheap in startups, and I would assume in trade. It feels like nobody is valuing him at all. He's been. I don't even know. I have to go look. I moved on my notes, but he's like over 5 targets per game, basically. Like, so he's a 100 target guy when he plays all the games, even in this offense. So yeah, I like him a lot. So yeah.
He's just a pick and choose when you play him kind of guy.
You have to have an other startable option if you're going to be acquiring
Hunter Henry
him on your roster. Yeah, so old Hunter Hank or a Tucker Kraft would be sick or something, or even Gesicki. Yeah, totally.
Hunter Hank is pretty funny.
Hunter Hank, yeah, that's my guy. Yeah, anything Henry, I just say Hank. Like my favorite chocolate bar is no Hank for sure.
Oh, there we go.
Definitely. Tell us your favorite chocolate bar in the chat, right? We're gonna go to the Baltimore. I don't fucking know.
Pretty funny, actually. If someone's putting Baby Ruth down there, we're gonna get excited. But
yeah. Or we'd talk about some wide receivers that drop the ball, and maybe somebody's favorite chocolate bar is Butterfinger.
I knew you were gonna make a bad dad joke right there. I felt it.
You see what I did there,
the people
right?
who know this show knew it was coming too.
Absolutely. And so I asked you at the top, and Jax, I think I asked you, so I'm going to ask Joe, if it would be crazy to draft Josh Allen still as the quarterback 1, would it be crazy to take Lamar as the quarterback 1 in a startup? Because I don't think it would be so crazy if he's going to be getting near that 40 touchdown mark with all of the rushing work that he does. What do you think, Joe?
I mean, Lamar has given us at least 2 league winning seasons, right? So no, it's not crazy that's in his bag, and like his efficiency as a passer just continues to get better and better. Like I think we're very much in his prime. I've kind of had just this bias that like he's gonna get hurt. I'd say historically I had that bias, just the amount that he ran, and then like last
Frame, right?
year,
And the
huh?
frame too. His
I
frame
think it's
always kind of sketched me out.
partially the frame, yeah. But then like last year, just thinking about that a little bit more critically and kind of checking my own biases. Like I just was watching him and he's actually a really smart runner. He doesn't take contact. I mean, Allen is a much more brute force type of runner than Lamar is. Like he's elusive, he goes down, he runs out of bounds. Like he's just really good at actually avoiding the contact. So I realized that was kind of misplaced fear. So I'm good with it. Yeah, I think you could certainly make a case for him. I still wouldn't take him over Jayden just because of the age, but yeah, he's got QB1 overall upside any given season, just like these other dudes do.
Yeah, and I think like to me, like the floor is still higher than with a Jayden Daniels because for all we know, like he's going into his second season, had a great rookie season, but the opportunity for downside is still, I would say, more open with a Jayden Daniels than it is for a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson at this point. So that's kind of where I sit with those guys. But yeah, Jayden Daniels is like the piece to build around for sure. Jax, where are you sitting on Lamar, and what do you think about his like next few seasons outlook?
I was like trying to unironically, I'm wondering if he's the best football player in the NFL. Like he is so good. He's certainly my favorite player. I love Lamar Jackson. So like he is my favorite football player. I love watching him play. Like there's nothing like him. Are you
No,
kidding? Like to not like Lamar Jackson and the way he plays is kind of like what do you like? You don't like fun
not
things.
fun.
Not
They don't
fun.
like
You don't
fun.
like fun. You do not like fun. It's the greatest. He's the greatest. Like he's been over like 66% completion percentage in a couple of these seasons recently too. Like 3 out of the last 4, something, whatever it is.
Yeah,
Like he has the 36 touchdown passing MVP season, and then just recently goes for 41 with only 4 interceptions all season. Like, are you
insane.
kidding me? This guy throws 41 touchdown passes with 4 picks and is the best rushing quarterback that we've ever seen. Like he could easily pick up 1,000 yards at any point. Like he went for 1,200 in year 2. He's kind of slowed down from there, just not rushing as much. Like if he wanted to, he could probably run for 1,500 or 2,000. Like he can do anything he wants. Like for him, it's a choice out there. He's so freaking good. So yeah, if you want to take him number 1 overall, you got me excited. I absolutely love Lamar Jackson, but I gotta say, of course, Jayden Daniels is the he's the 101. I wonder, if Jayden Daniels can actually push for this type of hierarchy, like the Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, rarefied air. Because in year 1, he was so efficient. Had a couple games where they didn't punt or turn it over, right? Like that's crazy. Like only a few of those such games, over the last couple of years for sure. So just unbelievable. But yeah, it's Jayden, and then then you can do whatever you want. But these guys are amazing. How about CMFK leaving the draft with both of them, with Jayden at the
Oh,
101 and Lamar at the
brutal.
103? Good for him. That's a
Brutal.
cool
Yeah,
build.
nicely
Just do what
done,
you need
man.
to do from there,
So
right?
much fun. Yeah, so much
Yeah.
fun. And yeah, the efficiency for Lamar has just been insane. That MVP season you were talking about, Jax, his touchdown percentage was 9.9%, which is like the best that's ever happened. This past season, 8.6%, which is still astronomical. 41 touchdowns was second best in the league, and he did it on like 100 fewer attempts than all of the other guys around him, which is just bananas. So if he's starting to do that, like I would probably have him in my conversation for Dynasty QB1, despite the age of Jayden Daniels, because the ultimate ceiling that he can give us, even in an offense that's low passing volume, is just insane. And so I love Lamar Jackson, much like yourself. And yeah, he's just good, wholesome fun. And we
Yeah,
love that.
his adjusted yards per attempt were 10.15. Like that's crazy. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Even his adjusted net yards per attempt was 9.38. That factors in sacks and everything. Like, dude, that's so efficient. It's out of control.
Yeah, he throws deep a lot too, almost 15%. So yeah, me and Jax are just salivating over some of the data
Let's
that we're
move
probably
on.
looking
Let's
at
move
on our
on. Everybody
screen.
knows Lamar is awesome.
But
The
let's
real
talk about
question,
like Joe, do you think Derrick Henry, like let's talk about him, because I think the bigger conversation probably is the pass catching weapons. So let's just get him off the table here, because he is kind of in a similar boat to Saquon Barkley in that he is the option for a contending team who's going to put up big seasons, but we don't know when the wheels are going to fall off. So first, are the wheels ever going to fucking fall off of this guy? And like, what do we make of him for Dynasty? Because it's hard to quit that kind of production that he's putting up in this Ravens offense. It's the perfect storm of player team match.
Well, I was just talking about like just don't bet against freaks when we were talking about Saquon, right? And I think the same goes for Henry. Of course, Henry's 4 years older.
Yeah.
It's just absurd. He got sort of a late start to being a full-time dude, but I started fading him probably 5 years ago, and
Right.
I've just been
Right.
big wrong.
Big
And
wrong.
like, there is nothing worse than being in a playoff game in December and going against Derrick Henry, because it's like, oh my god,
Totally.
this guy might absolutely kill me, and I just haven't had him on my side in any of these because my process tells me to stay away from guys like this, but then the
Yes.
exception comes along. I mean, that should be his nickname. It's just the exception.
The exception.
Is he a pass
yes.
catcher? No, not really.
Oh,
He's just a volume back that is defying time and what we think we know about running back efficiency. And then he got, of course, the Alfred Morris corollary, to quote
Of all time,
Matt
yes.
Kelly, of all time. Yeah, getting paired up with Lamar Jackson. So that just extended his career and his efficiency and his awesomeness for at least one season. I'm done betting against him. I'm still not buying at his age. Just I can't get myself to do it. But but no, I'm not betting against him either. I wish I had some.
As Travis and his True North brethren call it, the Jackson 5, because every single running back ever that has played with Lamar Jackson averages 5 yards per carry or more. Obviously, guys like Derrick Henry average 6-7 yards a carry sometimes.
27 yards a carry.
Yes, right. But yeah, the Alfred Morris corollary is real, and it's coming to life in this offense like none other before, with the greatest exception of all time. I wrongly last year advised not selling a late first to go get Derrick Henry before the season. And I would think I'm wrong again if I argue against it. It feels like, late 26 first for Derrick Henry is absolutely worth it, because he's going to win your league potentially. We've been betting against it together, Joe, and being wrong over and over again. This guy's unbelievable.
Same mega outlier. And like, I don't even there's nothing that's telling me that this is his final season either. Like, it's not to say he's a 1-year proposition. So like, who knows what we get out of Derrick Henry? Pretty fucking awesome.
The more interesting question about this is like, let's say Henry does get hurt, right? What are we doing with the rest of this? What are we doing with the rest of this group? Who's the dude back there that you're interested in? I mean, Justice Hill. Justice Hill is the pass catcher. I think he's pretty firmly entrenched in that role, and honestly has carved out kind of a useful fantasy role just doing that in this offense. Keaton Mitchell, I think, is the super exciting dude. Undrafted in 23, came on strong late that season before getting a real shot and then tearing his ACL, missing most of last year, not doing anything. But like, I was super excited about a dude like Keaton Mitchell. Same. I don't know what he does here. Like, if Henry goes down, I can't think Mitchell's going to be the dude. It completely changes everything. But there's going to be explosive plays made by Keaton Mitchell. So I tend to think it's him. I don't think it's anybody else.
I would think they'd go out and get somebody, honestly. I mean, if it was
just going to say that
severe enough where it's like Derrick Henry's done for the year or something, I think they go out and get somebody. But in the meantime, if it's just a game or two here or there, little nicks and whatnot, like, it's true. They have Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell. Neither guy profiles as a carry the load. And then it's 2 unsigned free agents, undrafted free agents, and Rasheen Ali, who was a little interesting, but certainly doesn't carry the moniker of, bell cow backup running back to Derrick Henry. So that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it's a very peculiar backfield behind Derrick Henry for sure, Mr. Kubatakis. I think the guy who would be carrying the heaviest lunch pail there would be not on this roster yet.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I think the guy that we would want in that situation is not there. But if it's going to be Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell sharing that load, give me Keaton Mitchell for the fact that he's going to pop off some big plays in that offense. Whereas I think Justice Hill is going to need to come in as that change of pace guy in an offense that does not target the running back that often. So that's kind of where I'm sitting for that. Keaton Mitchell is just, you go for the home run, and I think Keaton Mitchell will be the home run. Justice Hill's got big play in his profile too, but we've seen a lot more of him and not seen that come to fruition a whole ton. So I would be going with the higher upside young guy.
Yeah, Mitchell was doing HN things that there was the same rookie year, and he was doing HN things, right? And so I was taking very big note. I had a bunch of them. I still have a little bit, a few Keaton Mitchell bags, but
totally.
Anyway,
So do
so
I.
the candle's very, very strongly lit.
I have
Justice Hill with no injury received 51 targets in this offense. I know they don't target the running back too much specifically, but Justice Hill personally was actually very good. I watched a number of games, and whenever they were in that shootout, it was Justice Hill in that 2-minute offense that they run this offense that is my favorite offense there is, which was what you'd do if you were playing Madden, which is shotgun Lamar Jackson with a pass catching running back and a bunch of weapons. I'll just see what happens, man. Because you know what I mean? If like you pressure me, I'll run out the back door. Like I can go anywhere. I can just go anywhere and do anything because I have the best athlete in the world at quarterback. It's crazy when they do that. They can't be stopped unless Lamar does something stupid because it's impossible. I'll just run or throw all over your ass, and it's the funnest thing to watch. Justice Hill tends to be the guy in that, and he's like the extra special dump off, emergency guy that they just can't stop. And then he's got some wheels. So look, he has some upside if Derrick Henry were to get hurt, because I think the 51 targets maybe becomes a little bit more because they're not going to lean on the running game quite as much. They'll lean on that sort of that Lamar ball, because what's interesting is when they're playing Derrick Henry, it's way different. It's like they run this sort of pistol, play action, run pass option where Lamar has a different option where he can keep it in Derrick's belly or push the edge. Like, it's just a different offense. And when Justice Hill's out there, they run that secondary offense. Well, my point is, without Derrick Henry, I think the secondary offense gets run more and more targets do funnel to Justice Hill, which could be the upside there. So there you go. That's my 2 cents.
Totally. And they weren't like dead last in running back targets. They were 21st in the league in running back targets. So not dead last for sure. So interesting point there. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, so this offense last year at wide receiver, Lamar was the top scoring quarterback in points per game. Flowers, obviously the number one receiver, he was at 12.3 points. He was wide receiver 36. So basically like a low end wide receiver 3. Bateman ranked 51 at 10.3, and that's actually good. That's, I think, probably the best Bateman season we've seen. Henry, obviously, RB4. Mark Andrews, despite the horrific start, which probably is attributed to that car accident he had in the offseason.
And the foot injury last year.
And the foot injury. He still was tight end 9 with 11.1 points per game, which is better than Sam Laporta last year, right? Mm-hmm. So to Trav's point, I think it's Flowers and Andrews. Bateman's pretty useful. Obviously, they added Nuk, so that's he's going to get some targets. But I think it's pretty much the Flowers, Bateman, and Andrews show. Yeah. Consolidated target tree, just not as fruitful because of both what Henry's doing and what Lamar can do to siphon away the points.
I think the interesting thing for me is what the hell is even Nuk doing there? Like,
I think I was just going to comment on that. I think
weird thing.
What he does, honestly, is I think he takes a little bit away from Andrews' touchdown upside via red zone targets. I think is what he does. I think it's probably Andrews that he takes away more, but I think Andrews probably provides more big plays than does Nuk at this point, which is kind of hilarious to say. And so Nuk is probably even that shorter area target than is Mark Andrews, who can run some of that intermediate stuff where Nuk's going to be running 6-yard hitches all fucking day and slants basically, right. And just being a little underneath safety net. And he's a catch and fall down receiver at this point in his career, unless he has no defenders around him. So I don't think we're really banking on much there. Just monitor
That's
it.
That's kind of what I'm saying though.
He's more of like a nuisance.
Does Lamar really need that? You know what I mean? That's like, if I'm thinking, what kind of weapon would I get Lamar? It's almost like, I don't know. We don't really need a possession guy,
No,
it doesn't feel like that was ever like, you know what? They just had a guy who could run a 6-yard hitch. boy, they'd be cooking. You know, I mean, I've never
Yeah.
thought that with this team. It's like
I think there's a ring chasing element for Nuke in
maybe
that too,
That's
right?
exactly what I
And
was going to say.
maybe
That's why
just
he's
like
there.
that cheap additional piece who can get them those red zone touchdowns because he
Sure.
is still pretty good at that. And I was looking at some of the red zone carry stuff for all these quarterbacks because it's interesting. And Lamar Jackson only had 4.5% of the team's carries inside the 5, where these other guys were like Jalen Hurts was almost 50%. But that was way lower than any of these other guys. So he does not run the ball inside the 5. So we can't really bank on that much for him. Derrick Henry is a god of inside the 5 carries, but I wonder what their passing volume is going to look like in the red zone in 2025.
Well, it's going to be Andrews likely, and to your point, Nuke, right? Like I think that's the those are the dudes that they're going to be targeting just for efficiency at that part of the field. And Flowers and Bateman are kind of more the middle of the field than Yak guys, particularly Flowers. But yeah, that's kind of the way I see it unfolding and why they brought Nuke in. Aside from Nuke wanted to be there to win
What
that
that tells me now is that Lamar Jackson can sustain this hovering around 40 touchdown in the passing department. So where quarterbacks like him, like we rarely ever get that kind of passing touchdown season out of them. I think he can potentially keep that going, which is so wild considering that when he came in, there was teams talking about switching him to a wide receiver because he couldn't be an adequate NFL passer. And now the guy's got 40 touchdown seasons and multiple MVPs in his bag. So I think it's all good for this Ravens offense. And I think we could touch on maybe those tight ends a little bit. We didn't get too deep into it, but I think Mark Andrews has had that surge from last season that put him back into the eye of the fantasy beholder, which is pretty nice because he was starting to fade for fantasy gamers last year. Hey, Jax?
I'm drafting Mark Andrews repeatedly
Yes, you
here
are.
in startups. And he's coming off the board after the Matt Stafford, Devontae Adams thing. So you can actually go Matt Stafford or Devontae Adams, Matt Stafford, Mark Andrews, all in that same 9th, 10th round there, right in that ballpark of a startup. That's a lot of production at the back end there. I
Yeah.
mean, just trade for a couple 9ths and 10ths, which are easy to move up a little bit, and you can just nail production in that late, 100 to 130 picks. So anyway, I love Andrews there because he scored 11 touchdowns, and as you point out, was not the Mark Andrews of old, yet still was a top 12 tight end, and really was more than that down the stretch, right?
Totally.
Because at the first part of the season, we thought he was cooked or something was wrong, and yeah, they talked about trading him, but they didn't. And so maybe this is his last year with that. I don't really know. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, lots can change, but as of right now, that dude scores a lot of touchdowns and has a mind meld with Lamar, especially in the red zone.
A bit of a clogger for Isaiah Likely too. Like Isaiah
Yep.
Likely was supposed to have that ascension, but he just hasn't been able to get it yet.
Just real quick, just for Mike from Mike Clay's projections, right? Flowers is projected at 115 targets, Bateman at 69, Hopkins at 46, Andrews at 83, Likely at 55. I think those are pretty. I think
It's
that's
almost
probably more or less the way it shakes out.
Agree.
That's almost
I'm
bang
curious to
on
see if
last year. That's almost bang on what Bateman and Flowers had last year. And actually, one of the stats that I pulled, but I didn't drop it here, is that last year Bateman had only 58.3% of the targets that Zay Flowers did, but he had 71.4% of the yardage that Zay Flowers did. So he was producing a lot bigger on the targets that he got. He just wasn't getting that volume. And I think it's interesting to note that Bateman just this past week got a new contract for like 3 years and almost 13 million per. So he's going to be there for a while, but we've seen that even with him there, he's still not going to take a ton of targets from Zay Flowers.
True.
But he can be frisky on that low target volume. I love fucking Bateman, man. I think Bateman could be so sick in a better offense that would feed him more, but I digress.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's true.
Okay, so we're going to the Washington Going Commandos, as I like to call them. The Commanders, formerly known as the football team. Obviously, Jayden Daniels has brought a ton of hype around this team, guys, and it's fun. Like I'm an Eagles fan, so same division, but I'm still excited to watch the Commanders play. You know what I mean? Jayden Daniels was one of my favorite quarterbacks coming out. I love me some Brian Robinson. Austin Eckler's still a little bit frisky in that backfield as well. We got Terry McLaurin as the wide receiver 1, and then Deebo coming in, and then of course we talked a little bit about the pylon Zach Ertz. And we like Benny the Sinner behind him a little bit as well. But I think we got to start with Jayden Daniels because that's where this team starts and ends. Without him, this is a sad sack. With him, this is an absolute contender in the NFC. So we know that he's the consensus quarterback one. We don't really have to get into that too much, guys. But if we're trying to look at like potential dents in the armor for Jayden Daniels, or maybe potential bear cases for him, like the main one that I can think of is that vaunted defensive head coach, offensive coordinator combination with Cliff Kingsbury. Kind of talked about it ever since he was drafted, really, that we don't like these combinations because when you cycle through these offensive coordinators, it does not bring continuity for that quarterback. So is that still something that's in your brain with Jayden Daniels? Obviously, we know he's uber talented, so probably transcends offensive coordinator. But what if they get a shitbag in there? Like, what if they get like an Arthur Smith coming in and just slows everything down or something like that? Do you guys think that any of this can impact Jayden Daniels' standing, or am I just diving down too many rabbit holes? Joe?
I think that Jayden Daniels answered every possible question we could have had. My biggest concern with him going into his rookie year was primarily just like, is this dude going to hold up or just get absolutely killed out there with his sort of reckless running style, which he showed in college? And I think he toned that down a little bit, particularly when he did have that little scare mid-season. And I think he ended up missing. He was knocked out in the first quarter and missed the next game, if I'm not mistaken. After that, he was just throwing darts. And he was really good at it. And on a team that didn't have a ton of receiving options outside of Terry McLaurin and Zach Ertz, he was spreading the ball out and, just in complete command. So there's added weaponry. I don't think it's like maybe Kingsbury helped to a certain extent, but dude was the Heisman Trophy winner in college. Granted, he was playing with two awesome receivers as well, but that wasn't for no reason, right? This dude's a legit stud, and I don't think the offensive coordinator can make anybody play to the level that he played, in and of himself. So he's kind of, OC proof, assuming just a baseline level of competence. So I wouldn't worry about that in terms of outlook. I still, injury is the only thing that scares me with him, and that's the case with everybody.
You can't live your life worrying about that. You know what I mean? You can't go through life thinking about that injury all the time. You just got to kind of cross that bridge when you get to it. Jax, anything to add on Jayden Daniels?
Not really. Just put the 1-for-1 replacement of Marcus Mariota on your team because he's a stud too. Former first round pick. Joking, but no, I mean he's that good, and 69% completion percentage, very nice. But in year one, the joke's there, but really seriously approaching 70% completion percentage as a rookie who's known as a rusher, big play guy, to show the efficiency too is where he won. His success rate, all that sort of stuff, all the things that he did, in terms of conversion and bringing it home, man. That's where he wins. That's where we're not afraid to take him at the 1.01 in a startup. After that, my gosh, his number one weapon is a 29-year-old Terry McLaurin, who's never been a real target hog, has always been sort of, a little bit touchdown or bust, big play or bust, so to speak. A couple of big plays down the field or doesn't really get you home in a lot of situations. So, look, as much as Terry McLaurin's certainly his wide receiver one, and certainly we'll see some big plays, that's about all you have in this offense, really, to depend upon. It's like everything else is a bit of a question, don't you think?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And I think we just kind of have to kind of vault ourselves into the unknown, knowing that this is going to be a pretty high-powered offense. Like to kind of the Jayden Daniels point, some of that structure and that efficiency and like that added completion percentage, I think some of that is a bit of Cliff Kingsbury impact there. Not all of it. Obviously, Jayden Daniels was seeing the field and hitting the guys, but I think Cliff Kingsbury does a really good job of getting guys open. Jax, what was the question there? I got lost.
We don't know what the hell anything is going to be after Terry McLaurin.
Thank you.
Because here's the point, too. Olamide Zaccheaus was third on the team in targets. Zach Ertz was second. Zach Ertz still there, but do we really expect him to approach 90 or 100 targets this year again? I kind of think maybe we do. I don't know. Like, is that really what
I think
right?
Deebo is going to be interesting here, Joe. And I know we're
For
both
sure.
yapping here, so you can get in. But I think nobody's going to use Deebo the same way as Shanahan did, right? Like I don't think he's going to be getting all the carries that he got in San Francisco. I think he's maybe not full traditional slot receiver, but he's going to play a lot more traditional slot receiver. Kingsbury can be super creative as well, but I don't know if he does it quite as much as Shanahan's going to do. And I don't think. Let me rephrase that to say that I don't think that kind of work is going to have as big a percentage of Deebo's fantasy production in Washington as it did in San Francisco. And so I think like he's probably going to get quite a bit of targets as that underneath and slot guy, which I think is a really good fit alongside Terry McLaurin with the play style of Jayden Daniels kind of running around back there, being able to find Deebo. So that's going to be really interesting. The usage of Deebo is really going to have an impact on whether we want any of these other guys like Zach Ertz, whether Austin Eckler gets targets as well. It's going to be interesting to see. So I'm very curious about Deebo's usage. Joe?
I mean, the Niners kind of had the season from hell last year. Everybody was getting hurt. Nothing was working. Deebo got pneumonia, right? Missed a couple of games, came back and was playing, but looked like kind of a shell of himself. And I kind of don't know what to make of that. As we get further away from last season and kind of the stink that team had on them, and just think about what Deebo is as an asset and why the Commanders went out and got him, I kind of think Kingsbury's got a plan for this guy. And I don't think the version of Deebo that we saw last year is the Deebo we can expect to see this year.
No.
He is getting older. He does have a different kind of wear on him that most receivers his age don't
Well put.
because of the rushing production. But he's still a beast. He's still a ton of fun. And I think that Kingsbury knows what to do with them. So I've gotten more and more bullish about Deebo and his prospects and what he can do for this offense as we've gotten deeper into, as we're getting into summer here. And I've just thought about him in a Kingsbury offense a little bit more. Mike Clay's got him projected for 98 targets, 63 receptions, and about 900 yards, 5 touchdowns, in addition to 26 carries for 119 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think that's just part of the package you're getting with him. I kind of think Deebo, I don't think he really hurts McLaurin. I think just having the additional weapon really helps.
Yeah.
I think he does hurt either Eckler or Brian Robinson, though, just from a carries and dump offs standpoint. So I kind of think that's where the impact is going to be felt. But if he's anything like the Deebo we've grown accustomed to, yeah, he's not going to have like a monster. He's had like one monster season and, isn't like your traditional player, but from a fantasy standpoint, but he is a spike week dude and an awesome chess piece to have on your side for an offense. So I think it actually makes the offense way more dangerous. And I think that the pie is probably getting a lot bigger in Washington. I just don't know who it's affecting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not without risk, basically, is what you're saying there. Yeah. I think Deebo with 98 targets would be very, very
That'd be good.
intriguing, man. That is fun. Yeah.
I'd lock that in right now if I had him on my squad. I'd be like 98 targets and 23 carries.
As probably the wide receiver 4 on your roster in a startup right now, if not later.
Yeah.
What does Clay have for the tight ends? What does Clay have for the tight ends?
He's got Ertz at 81 targets, 58 receptions, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. Yeah. Right? It's 50 receptions, 500 yards, 5 touchdowns. The 555. And then Sinnott at 33 targets, 23 receptions, 227 yards, and 2 touchdowns, and we all cry ourselves to sleep.
Yeah, and that's assuming health for Ertz though, right? And so I think there's probably room for upward motion on Sinnott on that versus more so than downward motion. But I don't know, like we still have that candle lit though, right? Because obviously we know Zach Ertz is playing ahead of him if he's healthy, but we got to think there's going to be some stretch where Ertz misses some time or something this year. If he's playing full time, he's going to miss some time. And so like Sinnott's going to get some opportunity. And so I hope he gets a chance to show it because I think he's got it. But that's kind of where I'm sitting for him because he had a few games where he got like over 40% snaps last year, but nothing to show from a receiving standpoint. So still some proving left to do, but a candle lit nonetheless.
Yeah, Ertz was exactly the guy that Jayden Daniels, a rookie quarterback, needed last year, right? Outside of McLaurin, just a dependable dude who you know is going to be able to get open in the short area and someone to dump the ball off to. As this offense evolves and becomes more dangerous, the need for a player like Ertz sort of lessens, and someone who could be more explosive in it becomes more interesting. But we got to see if he's good first, right? And there's no real indicators yet in the NFL that that's going to happen. We're just trusting the profile and keeping him on our benches until we see it.
I mean, technically, I like the other guy they brought in 2024, in the 2024 draft, unsigned free agent, Coulson Yankoff.
That's right. That's right. How could we forget?
Immediate addition to the all-name team. Immediate. Yeah.
Obvious. Yeah.
Starter for the all-name.
I believe that was my my maiden voyage on the undrafted was Coulson Yankoff season.
Yes, it was Coulson Yankoff. Yep. Anyway, that's my take.
Okay, so just to finish off the Commanders, I think Brian Robinson in particular.
Real quick, but Coulson Yankoff is behind Mr. Bates.
Yes.
Nice. I also realized that I followed that up with saying just to finish off the Commanders.
Mr. Bates is ahead of Sinnott. Yankoff behind him.
Yeah. Okay, so let's finish the Commanders. I think Brian Robinson is kind of a sneaky little buy. Like, I don't know what the long term looks like, but I think as a bag holder of a lot of Brian Robinson, I rejoiced when Nick Chubb signed elsewhere with the Texans, because that was just another checkpoint cleared by Brian Robinson. So I think he's a little bit frisky as potentially a flex play who could give you those RB2 weeks. So look out for that, because I think he's going to be the goal line running back, and he's going to be the main between the 20s carrier. Eckler could get some of those targets, but this was a bottom 10 team in running back targets. So we don't expect a ton there unless they kind of shift the offense a little bit. But to your point, Joe, I think Deebo Samuel's addition kind of indicated we're not going to see a ton of a shift to more running back targets there. So what do you guys make of this backfield? Because I think both of these guys could be a bit of a value.
I think the difference between Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler in terms of like drafts is way too big. Not necessarily in Dynasty, but certainly in best ball, and certainly in, well, I don't know. I haven't seen much redraft ADPs aside from best ball, but it just seems to me like, Brian Robinson is your super boring and reliable running back too. Upside's not too high, downside's not too low. It's pretty bankable. It's kind of the guy you want as your RB2. But like Eckler, I believe he was injured for a good chunk of last season, but his receiving upside and his receiving profile are always going to make him interesting. And if we get a healthy season out of him, if it's not just, too late in the career and the wheels aren't falling off, like we could get some pretty high efficiency out of Eckler as well. So the gap between them is too wide in terms of, expectations for this upcoming season. I think Brian Robinson is exactly who we think he is, and I think Eckler is probably the one who's undervalued at this stage.
Yeah, they were both hurt and missed games last year. I think 3 or 4 or 5 games between each of them. So, that's kind of not a good thing for them last year. But what's interesting is if they can stay healthy, I think it's really just becomes, a game script dependent running back. If they're favored, you want Brian Robinson. If it's set to be a shootout where they could be losing, you certainly want to look at Eckler for their, the late game passing stuff. So, I just think it's that simple. I mean, just game script will play it out a little bit. Are they sitting on the clock running it out with Brian Robinson, or are they playing hurry up, catch up to try and, score as many points as they can and move as fast as they can with Eckler on the field? Ja'Cory Merritt, whatever, I can't even say his name. Krosky Merritt. We need a dope nickname for this dude because I mess it up every time. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. I can't even say it if I know what it is, so it's a real problem for me. But that dude was referenced as, actually we mentioned him on the undrafted today and Bodiford, but he was talking about how the coaching staff sees him as a straight backup to basically Brian Robinson. And so I think he's actually a handcuff at this particular point, maybe a low upside handcuff because he's only handcuffing Brian Robinson's role, but he's not behind 2 injuries. He's behind 1 injury. One injury to Brian Robinson. I think Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt might have some utility as the Brian Robinson type. I don't think it's going to be these other, Jeremy McNichols, whatever. It's possible they go back
He's
to
frisky
McNichols.
too. Like he's
Jeremy
just
McNichols is a cockroach.
He's a pain in
That
the
dude
ass.
hung around.
Yep.
No, we've talked about this before, Jax. I don't remember what podcast it was on, but like how we just like believed in him as a rookie. We're super excited about it as a second year guy, and then like just gave up on him, and then finally he found a role last year.
Yeah, pops up in Washington.
Yeah, he pops up in Washington, gets meaningful touches last year. So I don't know. He showed okay. He had I think a big fumble in the playoffs, right? In that game they lost to the Eagles. So it's so funny, like how much the last I saw of them is kind of what I think of them now, right? That's just recency bias. But yeah, I have no problem with JCM. Who that's what I'm going with
so far. We can't
also,
force it.
Not a great JCM. Doesn't have a great ring.
Something will happen. Something will come.
We got to get there with this. This is on us at this point, I believe.
Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there.
Put it this way, the field is wide open. I mean, the space to come up with a correct JCM nickname is wide open. It is wide open for us to do this. So,
and if
I'd be disappointed
if we're choosing between JCM and the field, I think at this point we lean towards the field.
I'm not thinking. Okay, I mean, I think you misunderstood what I was saying, but that's all right. I love you still. No, but I mean,
the field is a good nickname. Let's call him that.
The field. Somehow that's actually funny. We'll just call him the field.
Yeah.
I'm going back to my combine stats. Where the hell is this guy?
Field.
I don't know if we've steered people wrong.
He didn't go to
in
the
combine department.
You're right. I don't see him. He's not even in here.
He didn't go to the combine. That's why he was off the. He didn't have a senior year. He played like one game. This guy was off the target. But listen, he is maybe good, and you can get him every 4th or 5th round in your rookie draft, or picking him up off waivers if you have a soft league that didn't draft him in the 4th round, and you only have 4 rounds, whatever the case. Get the field onto your roster immediately.
I know. Just I'm clear for anyone just
not have a good ring.
The field is Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. That is who we are talking about.
I'm a big craps player, and everybody knows the field is a sucker's bet.
Exactly. I'm out on the field. Yeah, exactly.
I believe there's 22 ways to lose on the field.
Yeah, let's not do this.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, ample ways to lose on old JCM, I guess.
That's true.
So we're going to cover the last team that we're going to talk about. And I know this one, particularly their quarterback, has given Jax many a Falconer this offseason. We're going to talk about the Denver Broncos. And we're going to start with Bo Nix. He had an incredible rookie season. He showed some of that rushing upside that Jax, you've been talking about, we've been talking about. You've been steaming him above his ADP since early offseason for what he is, and he has come into that point as far as ADP is looking right now, Jax. He is a bona fide top 10 quarterback for folks. Top 10, fine. That's good. That's well. Jax, you like some Bo Nix. I'm going to test your mettle a little bit here. Do you think top 5 is in Bo Nix's range of outcomes? Do you think you could see him in the next few years being a top 5 dynasty quarterback?
Probably not. I think the thing that pushes him, I think the thing that's pushing him into the top 10 right now is rushing upside and youth. I mean, he's not young. I mean, he's 24, but he's still young, right? He still has everything ahead of him. He's also going to be on a rookie contract, hopefully getting surrounded by a better and better team as he goes. He's got one of the best offensive lines in the NFL right now. So things kind of just open up for him right now. Sean Payton seems to have a very symbiotic relationship. He played a lot better. If you chop the last season into any sort of grouping you want, into quarters, he played better each quarter. Half, he played better each half. Thirds, he played better each third. Like, he just played better and better as the year went on, no matter how you look at it. So he got better. He ended up with 66% completion percentage, but again, toward the end of the season, he was at 70% for most of it. Like, he was just really good. As a rusher, I mean, I'm going to look it up here real quick. I mean, what did he have for rushing? He was like, it was
100. He had, a little bit over like 461,
430 yards. Yeah, 430 yards, which isn't a ton, but I think there's even more there too. One of the things that I like is when first of all, they made it to the playoffs, right? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They made the playoffs. That's right. They played the one game where they lost. So in that playoff game, I remember thinking like he's showing himself well. He wasn't an absolute train wreck. Nothing. The wheels didn't just fall off. I thought that he afforded himself very well in the big moments when I saw him. Like he didn't seem to shrink from it all. He was a rookie. There's actually upside here. So I mean, even if he just stays where he's at, it's very successful. What was he, the quarterback 7 or 8 last year?
Something like that. Yeah,
that's amazing.
8, yeah.
And then there's, hey, if he stays in that ballpark and just plays like that, he'll keep his job and give you a quarterback 1, season in fantasy. But there's also a little bit of ceiling from there, maybe a top 5 in terms of production. I don't think a top 5 in terms of dynasty value, though.
Dynasty value. That's a good point. Yeah, like I love what you were saying too, because like the rushing that comes with him is a little bit different because it's not like Peyton's drawing up a bunch of design runs from, right? 431 yards total on the season. 361 of those rushing yards came on scrambles, so not designed runs. He had 50 scrambles on the season, which was second in the league behind only Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels had 72, by the way.
Wow.
And Bo Nix was number 2 with 50. So Bo Nix doesn't he's going to get this for you just inherently, right? You don't have to be like, okay, this offensive coordinator is not going to draw it up for him. This guy is. Like Bo Nix is going to find those opportunistic times to run, and he's going to take them. And he's still going to have some of that passing floor where his rushing volume isn't so much that it takes away from the passing volume that he has. So I like everything you say. And he's kind of one of those guys that's like behind that tier of elite rushing quarterbacks who are giving you 600 plus yards a season. Bo Nix is the best guy if you want some of that on your team. Joe?
Yeah, the one thing I'll add is the first 4 or 5 games, he was kind of looking comically bad, right? Like I thought I saw some stuff that I liked, but there was also some, lost rookie stuff in there. He still finished the season with 6.7 yards per attempt and 29 touchdown passes to go along with that 430 yards. If you give him, just prorate what happened after those first handful of games over the course of an entire season, I mean, he's like 4 touchdowns away from being a top 5 quarterback from a scoring standpoint. So,
he had 1 touchdown in the first 4 games. Like, it was really bad. And then,
I don't think that there's a strong case for him right now to project him as a top 5 dynasty quarterback, just based on what we thought about him coming out. But if he puts up another season like this one that he just did, why wouldn't we put him up there, right? He's got the rushing floor, and he, if he's getting to 30-something touchdowns in a Sean Payton offense, we had no problem hoisting Drew Brees up there. Like, why can't a dude that runs and playing his Drew Brees offense get there too? So it's too early to say he can't get there. I don't think he will, but he's honestly not that far right now. It's within his reach.
Yeah, fair enough.
What a story. And what a story if we were to press the button on putting Bo Nix in the top 5 of our dynasty quarterbacks. That would be wild. After what a roller coaster of ADV that guy has had since his college career. Hey,
oh my God. I just begrudgingly was drafting Bo Nix last year, and he saved so many teams.
Yes.
Yeah. And now he's an anchor for those teams for years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. So now he's found money. I love the guy now.
Yep.
Totally. So another one that impacts a guy that we have been loving is today, guys. Denver Broncos signed JK Dobbins, and we're recording this on Tuesday. JK Dobbins signed for, I think, $5.25 million on a 1-year deal, which is not nothing money for JK Dobbins. And so I think long-term, we're still stoked about RJ Harvey. We still think he's going to be fun. We think he's going to be a key piece of this offense, but JK Dobbins signing for over $5 million gives me a little bit of pause on RJ Harvey in year 1. Jax, as kind of the leader of the RJ Harvey train, what were your first reactions to this JK Dobbins signing, both short-term and long-term? Obviously, JK Dobbins isn't going to be there for 6 years, but does it maybe tell you something about what they want for the running back room?
Well, maybe neither will RJ Harvey. So, but remember, I'm also the leader and conductor of the JK Dobbins fan club train 100%. As well, as that dude is like one of my favorite players in the NFL. JK is just, I said it on the Undraft, I'll say it again here. I'm so glad that kid gets, $5 million to set himself up, because
Yeah.
he avoided contracts with these injuries and deserves some money. I think he played for like nothing last year. It was
Yeah.
all incentive based. I think his guaranteed was like 30 G's or something. It was ridiculous. So, any money that JK Dobbins receives, I'm pretty happy about. All that being said, I do think it kind of takes the floor and ceiling projections down a skosh for RJ Harvey, because you could have looked at Estime and McLaughlin and everything that was there before Dobbins got there and said, well, none of these guys are going to elevate to a point where they're challenging RJ Harvey for touches every game. Whereas I think you can say that about JK Dobbins, that JK Dobbins could and may even elevate over RJ Harvey to start the season. He could be the veteran deference player that is out touching RJ Harvey out the gates, which we would have never thought that there was going to be a running back out touching RJ Harvey before Dobbins signed. So it does change the calculus a big time.
Yeah, I think he was brought in to be that, right? To be the veteran presence in that running back room. Like Jaleel McLaughlin's still pretty young. Estime is going into his second season. RJ Harvey's a rookie. They need that veteran guy who can come in there in some of those blocking situations, maybe some of those third down situations. So I think he's going to be frisky for this season. And I love JK Dobbins. You talk about nicknames, boys. One of my favorite ones of all time that I've come up with is the Dob Goblin for JK Dobbins, because he just takes people's souls. I love him and I want to see him succeed. So I don't want to see RJ Harvey not succeed. So it's kind of a weird dichotomy to be in here, but everything you said, Jax, is kind of spot on with where I'm feeling. Joe, you made a couple faces there. Let's hear it.
He's got a face. I love it.
You guys just named a bunch of names, and I don't know who these people are. Who the fuck is Jaleel McLaughlin? Who the fuck is Audric Estime? Who the fuck cares? It is over for them. Right now, if anybody's selling RJ Harvey, you go buy that shit. Right now, if you can get JK Dobbins, or if you have JK Dobbins, you're jumping for joy. We just consolidated the backfield to two guys that matter and forget about everybody else. Like, maybe if Dobbins or Harvey get hurt, one of them finds a role. Maybe one or two of them are still active on game days, but these dudes are toast. Their fantasy value is gone. Just go trade them to the Dobbins or Harvey owner as a handcuff and get whatever you can get. Or, like, I don't know, you're hoping for injury. That's the best case scenario. Dobbins proved last year. He's still got it. He's still good. He's going to be a dude that coaches trust. He's the Mark Ingram.
Tell him,
Harvey is the Kamara. We can have both, and they're great, and forget about the rest.
That's right.
I like it. I love that you came in with that stance there, because we do. It's like the short-term play and the long-term play, right? Very good.
I'm thrilled because I have one more rookie draft to go, and I'm just praying that this pushes RJ Harvey's value down. So like I'm picking late, and I'm just praying he falls to me. And I'm like, this is the ticket I needed.
Yeah,
yes,
that's beautiful. That is beautiful. The wide receiver room is like kind of a lackluster, uninspiring unit.
Frustration station there.
Yeah, we've been inspired by some of these guys in the past, and we've been left wanting. So, I mean, Courtland Sutton is obviously the guy at the top. I think, would you guys feel comfortable with him as the wide receiver 2 on a dynasty roster right now?
No.
Yeah, no.
He's my second flex. I like him as my second flex.
He can probably give you some wide receiver 2 weeks, though, being the number one target in this offense. So I think Courtland Sutton, let's see what his startup ADP value is, because he's been around for a while. He's got some
Sutton's like a wide receiver 3 firmly in terms of like this season. Yeah. So I'm comfortable playing him, but on my dynasty team, any team structures with him as my wide receiver 2 is a disaster.
I agree. I'll bring the show full circle. Yeah, he's the wide receiver 47 in Dynasty.
Yeah, I see like 41 or something behind Adams. So yeah, in that.
But
range.
Check it out.
He's a value.
I'll bring it full circle, because we started in Buffalo with Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir. Excuse me.
Right.
And would you rather have Keon Coleman or Courtland Sutton in Dynasty?
Sutton.
Me too. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I mean, Sutton goes after Keon Coleman. I think that's certainly, I'd take the production of Courtland Sutton over the perceived value that we might find in Keon Coleman, who may never have a single season as good as Courtland Sutton.
Yeah, No, I agree with you. What about the other guys? This is the real question for us here on this podcast and at this brand, the Undroppables.
Oh, it's so
There
bad.
are like this is a Troy Franklin household. We've said
Yeah.
that many a times. But before this was a Troy Franklin household, and before my time even at the Undroppables, this was a Marvin Mims household.
Yep.
So, and then Sean Payton decides he wants to bring in Pat Bryant in like the 4th round or something like that.
Third.
And 3rd round. And he brings a different skill set than these guys, as a guy with some size as well, who could profile on the outside. So what do we make of this group here? Are we investing in any of these guys? Joe, I saw you invest in some Marvin Mims in the startup that we're in just recently. So why don't you talk about that and what you're seeing as the bull case for Marvin Mims?
Well, you have to look back no further than the second half of last season, right? Game 11 or week 11, he scores 13.3 fantasy points. Week 13, he scores 19.9 fantasy points. Week 17,
Week 17.
30.2. Week
Week
18,
17 with the catch in the end zone too. Like
yeah,
that
yeah.
fucking play.
Week 18, 22.1. Dude had finished off the season with 2 back-to-back 2 touchdown weeks. So he came on really strong, and most importantly is this. He, I think, earned Bo Nix's trust, both, and he started getting used downfield. So, Sutton is the possession guy, but I think that Mims established himself as the playmaker. I guess what I'm most concerned about him is just with the addition of why am I blanking tight end? With the
Good
addition of
angle.
Evan Engram,
Yeah.
what's that going to do to his targets? But I think he's like a great basketball play. I think he's a good third flex option because he's going to have these spike weeks. He's just got that in his bag, and you don't mind that kind of variance. So I think he's a valuable asset in Dynasty, and I think there's a chance he's the wide receiver 1 on this team before this season's done. I remain bullish on Marvin Mims, and I think that he kind of earned Bo Nix's trust to a certain extent on an ascending offense with an ascending quarterback. He's a wide receiver who seems like he found his groove, especially down the stretch last year. That's where I'm at with Mims. I'm probably about as bullish as people get. And full disclosure, I have very, very heavy and plentiful Marvin Mims bags. So I'm wish casting a little bit here too.
Yeah.
Jax, are you kind of in the same boat? They're just kind of like
for sure, man. Yeah, that was a good take. And yeah, I mean, there's just so few outs for any of these guys, including Pat Bryant and Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims. Sutton's going to be a target, magnet. Obviously, is the number 1. Engram comes in. I think he's going to see a lot of targets too.
Yeah.
So once you get past those 2 guys and the way that sort of Sean Payton deploys everybody, it's kind of like they sort of it's almost like a college team or an AAU team or something. They're just like, rotating him in there. And Devon Vele,
Von Bailey,
whatever, still alive and still probably going to play. I mean, it's just kind of weird. So that whole team, I'm not so sure what we can make of any of the second wide receivers, all 5 of them or whatever there are. Very hard to pin down who's going to be good at all.
Yeah. So let's talk about Evan Engram here, guys. Evan Engram or Pat Freiermuth in Dynasty?
Engram.
This season or
in Dynasty?
In Dynasty. Man, that's tough. I mean, we've seen obviously very high highs from Engram. I'm partial to Freiermuth just because he's so clear. Everything is cleared for him to have a career year this season. So, oh God. I guess I'd still take Engram, but I'm bullish on Freiermuth this year.
Evan Engram or Turd Ferguson?
Evan Engram.
What about Evan Engram or Isaiah Likely?
Engram.
I think that's right. I'm actually pulling up my friggin' rankings to see where I'm at. That's probably pretty close right there.
Yeah, so I think what that tells me is that Evan Ingram's a value because he's going behind all of those guys as the tight end 17. And then above Likely, the next guy is Jonnu Smith, and I think that's a little bit of a tier up, right? So, and then ahead of him is Pitts, and then we get into Njoku and those guys. So I think Evan Engram, maybe along with Jonnu Smith, is kind of the start of that next tier after you get the Pitts and Njoku guys, but you can probably get him in a later tier. Like he goes like 10 picks ahead of Cade Otton, 2 picks ahead of Travis Kelce, funny enough. So yeah, I think Evan Ingram's a little bit of a value because we got some hype around his signing of people being excited about what he was doing there, but it seems like that died way out, and he seems like a value in drafts. Like that startup, Joe, I waited way long for tight end, and I thought I was fucked. Like there was a huge run before me. I'm at one of the turns, but I was happy enough to get Evan Engram in like something like the 16th, 17th round, as like maybe not that late, but as my top tight end. And you know,
yeah. I know I got McBride early in that league, like in the 3rd round, and I was just sitting there looking at Evan Engram for rounds and rounds and rounds, thinking, "Oh God, what?" Like I hate when you take a premium or like a onesie position early and then just see value slide, and it's like I can't possibly take him. There's no reason to take him for me. But yeah, no, that was a great get, and I think you're right. He's a value.
I got him in the 13th. And if you are going to get Evan Engram, I would highly suggest doing some succession planning later in a draft. And so in the 16th, I came back partially to troll Joe, partially because I wanted some young upside, and I took Theo Johnson. And then 2 picks later, I took Ben Sinnott. And then in the 22nd, I took Michael Mayer on brand.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the 24th, I took Luke Musgrave. So I got a bunch of young guys behind him. So
I like
got
that.
one of those guys is going to give me a successor. So
someday, right? Exactly. But to your Evan Engram point, 2 years ago in Jacksonville, 143 targets. 143 targets. Last year was pacing for about 120 targets before he got hurt. So, you know, in total, I think he's still a guy that can earn 100 targets, especially in this offense. You know, for signing, exciting guy to bring in. They've been hunting for a tight end. They've been trying every single player at tight end for so long. There's always a new lunch pail out there, and you're like, who's this lunch pail guy?
They were forcing targets to the rainbow trout, Adam Troutman, last year.
Yep.
Well, I believe Kroll was their leading tight end last year at like 2.1 fantasy points per game, if I'm not mistaken.
And some lunch pail named Adkins or something too. So yeah. Yeah, interesting. Good chat, boys. I think that's a wrap on this episode. We covered the Bills, we covered the Eagles, we covered the Ravens, the Commanders, and Denver. That's 10 teams in the books over 2 episodes, boys. I think that's pretty well met for us. Yeah, so gonna keep it rolling. What's the next group? The next group is the old guard. So some teams who have a little bit of aged veterans on them. I'm not gonna lay out the teams right now. I'm just gonna leave the people guessing. So I want everybody who listened to the show to leave a comment and let us know what you thought. If you think there was maybe a shite take on some of these guys, or if you have some different information that could change some of our opinions, we love to hear that. So please leave a comment, show us some love. Follow us on the audio platforms and follow the Undroppables on social media. Our personal social medias will be in the episode description, so go check it out. We would love for you to give us a follow. Any parting shots for the people, fellas? Okay.
Waiting for each other to go.
I was just looking at more Marvin Mims stats. Like the other thing, encouraging thing is just how his snap share increased.
Not what I was asking when I asked for parting shots. Did not ask to go down another Marvin Mims.
Marvin Mims propaganda.
Yeah, that is Joe's parting shot. Is Marvin Mims propaganda? So for Jax Falcone, for Joe Quavius Kubatakis, I'm Trav. We'll see you next week. Peace.